Hello and welcome to part 4 of our Planet Zoo adventure here in Sakura no Seki, our cherry blossom sanctuary. Last episode we actually added in another enclosure which now holds our cougars. We have 4 enclosures in total, as well as I believe 4 smaller enclosures which hold all of our animals here at our sanctuary. I added in the cougars last episode because I was actually going to add them into the wolf area, but decided that that place made more sense for a wolf and ended up building this new enclosure. And actually I really love this enclosure. I'm very proud with how it came out. We have 2 cougars in this enclosure. We have Saber and Suri, and later on in this episode they actually have a surprise for us. First off in this episode though, I think I'm just going to explore the zoo, check on everybody, and then we will get to building our newest enclosure, which is going to hold our tapirs and our captured monkeys. And I possibly will be adding in another animal into that exhibit, but I'm not too sure right now. Right now I'm just exploring the zoo, having a look at the underground tunnel where we have our wolf den, as well as on the other side you can see the pygmy hippos underwater area. Unfortunately no one's in there at the moment. But I really like this kind of area, though it's a bit sloppy with the building. It works perfectly fine, and it did take a long time for that to happen. In this enclosure here we have our jaguars, which actually have cubs at the moment. Fun fact I find out a bit later in the video is that I actually have 2 inside of my animal training center, and they are actually related to Moon and Charmer, and it's very interesting, and I actually add them in. We have 3 here waiting to be let go and go to another zoo, though I may be keeping one, as well as 3 males that are currently still with their parents. Unfortunately we didn't get any melanised cougars, just like the mother, so I'm hoping the next breeding we will actually get some, and we'll be able to keep one back for breeding. I will also be building a separate zoo so that we can have all of our animals that go in there for retirement purposes, still get money from them, but at the same time it's just somewhere where they can go and retire and have a nice time. This enclosure was the first one I built, and I'm quite happy with it, even though the surrounding area is a bit dull. But over here on this far side is where I'm actually going to be building the new enclosure, and I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be interesting to see how it comes out, though I've not really got much of an idea in mind, apart from the fact that I don't really want to do another sunken enclosure, which is something I did think of possibly doing, but that's not what I probably will actually end up doing. And we're getting notifications left, right and centre that animals are breeding, and also, well, trying to breed, as well as having babies. So throughout this episode you may see some pop-ups, and I will happily do an update video of all the animals in the zoo very soon, because I'm hoping that you guys will be able to name some of them for me. Oh, and there we go, another baby on the way. The pygmy hippos are doing very well, actually. I mean, to be fair, all the animals in this zoo are, apart from the wolves, who actually are all quite old, so I may have to look into getting in some new breeders and perhaps making them the first ones that go to the retirement home. Right now I'm just scouting the area, trying to figure out what I'm going to do, whether or not I'm going to build this enclosure right now or leave it until later, because as I say, things pop up now and then, and also the surrounding area isn't looking too great. I'm kind of thinking of moving some plants in the area so that we can make it a bit more decorative, just so it brings a bit of life to the areas where these shops are, because at the moment they are very dull and very boring, because they are only there to serve their purpose at the moment, because I was concentrating more on the animals and their enclosures. As we have all of our animals over this side of the zoo, I thought it would make sense to kind of move on to the other side to build something out. I didn't want to do everything too close together, but at the moment I kind of have. But 2 of the enclosures are close together because of course they have both underground viewing areas. And that's where I realised that I had indeed forgotten that I do have the yellow enconders, so I just kind of checked on them. And throughout the episodes, whenever I get notifications that the smaller animals have actually got some young in there, I actually sell them to get some profit in, because money is something that we're struggling with a little at the moment. But that is my fault for having big animals in the zoo, which obviously eat a lot, especially the big cats. Here I'm just getting a few security guards in and making sure that they have their designated areas, as I got a notification to say that we don't have any, and I wanted to make sure that we didn't have things stolen or broken while we're trying to get money in at the same time. So though it's a bit more of a cost to have more staff, it just makes more sense to me, and as I have the work zones all set and ready to go, it makes it a lot easier to put them in the right area for them to make sure they look after the entire zoo. Though we may have to do a separate area for a new staffing buildings eventually when we have a couple more animals. So as you can see here, I have a lot of animals in my animal storage, and I'm actually going to build a private zoo off camera where I could put all these animals so they are not in the way all the time. And further down the line, when I breed them up, whether or not we add them to this zoo is up to you guys. I did sort of have a comment say that maybe I should add a couple in, considering all the trouble it had to get this game running in the first place, but I don't know yet. So we are going to be getting rid of some of the jaguars that were bred in this zoo. As you can see right here, I realised that I have 2 infants, which are actually moon sisters, I believe. So here I decided to move the 2 females, who are quite young still, into the enclosure, so that way they can grow up, and then either I can sell them on, give them away into the wild, or keep them for future breeding. So here I decided that we're going to keep the female, who's 3.5 years old, just here because she has the cream colour fur, but also she has the best genetics as well. The male and the female sibling I end up selling off to the wild so they can go and populate their area, and that way get some more conservation points as well. Now here I realised how many animals have actually had babies, so I just go through all of the small exhibits and make sure that there is only 1 male and female. That way we get a bit more money, and also their welfare will go up. And there you go. So you see I had quite a lot, so I end up selling all of these for a nice £10,000 profit, which will go far, hopefully, with building our new enclosure. We're doing really well on the research, and soon, once this is all sorted, I'll end up putting them on some newer animals that we get into the zoo, so that we can keep all of the research going to be able to research them all fully. The old game I had, I actually researched a lot of these, and they obviously carry over when you do a new zoo in the campaign. Unfortunately, because I lost all those saves, I actually lost all of the research, which is kind of, I keep forgetting about, so I have to keep an eye on that and make sure that I am checking all the animals as well. And here's a nice little image of how popular the jaguars actually are, because everyone's crowding around, which made me think I need to build this new enclosure. Even if it's right at the edge where they are now, I need to make sure that viewing areas are not in the way, because of course they will gather up in that area and people won't be able to get through. I was just kind of checking around the zoo, trying to get an idea of what kind of enclosure I was going to build, also checking on the animals as well. Soon I realised that a lot of my wolves are actually old, and the alphas probably aren't really going to get any more pups this year, especially because the only one she had was 1, which was normally they have about 4 or 5 whenever I've played before, but she only had 1, and obviously they have to wait until they're a certain age in order to be able to have more. So I'm hoping they'll be able to have some more, and then I'll be able to change up the male and have a new breeding line in there, and obviously the older ones can go to the retirement zoo once I build it. And then I got the notification to say that the cougar is about to have her first offspring here at Sakura no Seki Zoo. So it was just a waiting game at first, and waiting for her to find a nice spot to settle, and then eventually she had not 1, not 2, but 3 beautiful cubs. You can see here I'm just going through checking their genetics, checking what kind of coat colour they have and what all they are, and of course they are all male. So we have 3 in total, and I decided to name them. So this little fellow here is named Boss, after one of the subscribers on my channel who has been on here for a long time. I ended up naming the other 2 males Tai and Neo, don't ask me why. The reasons that I have worried more about this little fella's name is because I'll be keeping him for possibly future breeding, whereas the other 2 males don't have the best genetics, so they unfortunately will be going to another zoo or off to the wild once they are old enough. But here is some nice pictures of them while I was trying to get some nice screenshots so you can really see their beautiful crystal eyes up close. So I'll let you enjoy the cubs for a moment before we get back into what we are doing. Here I was just trying to get a nice screenshot because how cute are they with those beautiful gorgeous blue eyes. And you get a nice real close up as well. And also you can see the difference in the coats. One is a more red orange colour and the other one is a more yellow sandy colour, and the yellow sandy colour is actually the one we're keeping, which is Boss. So the fun fact that I found out about the jaguars is that actually the two females that I added in have the same mother as Moon did, which makes them siblings. But the two females actually have the same father, Charma, which is Moon's mate, so any of their offspring is also going to be the two girls' siblings. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they have the same mother and then they have the same father as their sister's mate, which makes them all related somehow, which means we for sure cannot use those females in any future breeding projects with any of the males we produce here at this zoo, because the father is going to be the same as their father, and any of them that they will be breeding with will actually be their half siblings. So we don't want to be doing that, so we're definitely going to be getting rid of those two females, probably put them up for auction. But that was kind of a fun little thing I found when I was looking through. I decided that this mixed enclosure is going to have the tapir and the capuchin monkey, which I mentioned at the beginning of this video, and they are also, funny enough, in the thumbnail, so kind of surprise surprise. But this is the start of the speed build, which can be quite long unfortunately, so you can always skip it if you want to, but I have sped it up for you. Enjoy! Now that was quite a hefty sort of speed build, so I kind of sped it up quite a bit, but you'll be able to obviously see the enclosure at the end. But yeah, I kind of tweaked it a lot more than I expected to, because I realized that it probably wasn't big enough in order to do a nice area for the tapirs to actually swim in. So I expanded out the enclosure and added in a bit more of a climbing frame, which actually went over the water for the monkeys. The monkeys aren't actually in the enclosure at the moment because I couldn't get enough in order to be able to have a stable colony. And I also wanted to make sure that it was big enough and had everything ready before I added them in. Thankfully the terrain, they were all happy with that, so I didn't have to mess around with it too much. Especially when I expanded the enclosure, I had to tweak that a little bit more, but the tapirs are very happy, and eventually the monkeys will actually be added in and be very happy as well. Then I just kind of explored a little bit, checked on the animal. I kind of wanted to check up on our little cougar family, as I hadn't really checked up on them, and look at this really cute moment of them all coming together to have some food. They are seriously adorable. This way I let the tapirs get more comfortable in their new enclosure, as well as waiting for the animal trading center to refresh so that I can hopefully get some more monkeys into the new enclosure. I had to tweak it more than I actually thought, because I thought it was big enough, but when I looked at the water there wasn't really much space that the tapirs could swim in, so I decided to expand it out and make it much bigger. That way they won't be cramped too much. They have the one shelter, but they're still quite happy with that, so that was good. And here we go. Here are our first capuchin monkeys in this new enclosure. They are seriously cute. And here's a nice closer look for you guys. And yeah, I'm hoping that they'll be very happy here, and turns out they are. They actually breed really well, which I was quite surprised at. And I also made sure they couldn't escape, because of course that is something that we need to definitely make sure of. We do not want to add them into the new enclosure and they immediately jump out. Thankfully though, they do not, and turns out they can't actually climb some of the climbing frames in there, but they just kind of look good, so I've kind of just left them in. I love the bit over the water, though the people can't see it too much from one side, because I decided to leave that wall solid concrete so that they don't all stand there to look in the enclosure and block that path. So I've got viewing areas all the way around on the other side, so that people will have to walk around or stand near the shops to be able to actually see inside the enclosure. That way everyone can walk past the jaguars once they've had a look and not get completely gridlocked. So we have 8 little ones in here. We have one male and a couple of females, a couple of males, and I add a few more as well, just to kind of mix it up a little bit, because you need to have at least 8 individuals. They kind of go by the fact that there's one alpha male and female, but I found that 2 males were actually mating with the females, so I don't know if they've kind of made 2 separate colonies inside here, but either way I'm happy. And because it was raining, they actually went straight to the shelter and they were hanging out with the tapirs, and I thought that was really cute. So there's nice shots here of them all together underneath their shelter, and they seem quite content with each other, which I was glad about, because the last thing I wanted was to actually have to change up this enclosure entirely, so thankfully that wasn't something we had to worry about. They seem to really enjoy it, so I was glad about that. As always, the enclosures I build are not amazing, but I was just glad that it worked out and it's big enough for all of them as well. Also, if you have any name suggestions for any animals, as always, please comment them down below. We have a load of monkeys and 2 tapirs that need naming as well, as well as any future offspring in the zoo, or any animals that we get in as well. And as you can see here, I decided to grab a few more females. Even if they're not got good genetics or anything, I kind of just get the ones that have got the best, and that way we have more of a big colony in here and they should be happy together, which they are, so that's the main thing. As I think at the moment we have like the borderline as many 2, 4, 6, 8, yeah, about 8 or 9 in there, so it's basically just enough. So adding some more, they can go up to like 30 individuals, so that's also good. So that's kind of what I've just kind of gone with, to add in a few more females, so there's 4 more that could get pregnant and have some babies, and then we can really build out this colony of monkeys in this enclosure to make it more alive, because obviously they're quite small, so you can't really see them very well. but at least you got the tapirs in there, so that's good. I've also got all the billboards around as well as the donation boxes as well, so people will be able to see inside. I realise I don't have power, and I add in another power station so that they will be able to see all the boards and also have good water and everything as well. So the tapirs did actually try to breed, I believe, 3 times while doing this video, and unfortunately the first time and possibly the second time it didn't work, because obviously they're not high enough fertility rate, which was kind of disappointing, and I thought maybe I'd have to get rid of one of them and bring in another one, but there's a surprise at the end of this video, which you could probably already guess from what I'm saying. But yeah, so it works out in the end, but at first, unfortunately, yeah, nothing, but they're comfortable and happy enough to actually try, so that was very exciting to see. Whereas the monkeys have no problem. I'll tell you that now, I was shocked. So then I decided to add in some vegetation around the buildings. Honestly, the end result actually turns out quite nice, and even though it's very repetitive, it actually looks decent because it's just not so plain and boring. So here I'm adding in some vegetation into the new monkey and tapir enclosure to make it a bit more alive. Trying to find what they actually like in their enclosure is very difficult, but we get there in the end and it looks slightly decent. I don't add too much in because there's obviously not a lot of space, so I just add enough in so that they're content. And as you can see here, this very happy chap is actually our first little youngster of the capuchin monkeys. One of, I believe, 2 or 3 that are born during this video. Super cute. A bit bigger than I thought though. I thought he'd be a bit smaller, but I kind of understand that they're not really going to be riding on the mum, which makes sense because obviously that's too complicated to probably do. So I understand that much, but super cute either way. So we do have jaguars and hippos that start fighting because the youngsters age up, so I have to remove our first male pygmy hippo out of the enclosure, and he is in the trading center, as well as the jaguars as well, because I did not want them fighting. And I have to get some little help for Anna, one of our pygmy hippos, because she unfortunately gets a bit injured while fighting the male. And finally, on the 3rd try, our female tapir actually becomes pregnant. She's actually expecting next year to have her offspring, so that's super exciting, and that will be for next episode when we'll see our first little tapir running around. And they are so cute when they are young, so I'm looking forward to that. So here during the daytime you're able to see what I mean by adding in the vegetation into the area around the buildings as well as in the enclosure itself. Just really brings that area to life now, a lot more green and a lot more colour with the plants, but also hides those horrible buildings. Even though they are exactly the same, you would not notice that is the same area. I also added in some flowers as well just to make it a bit different. But this is where I'm going to end this episode. we have our beautiful little cougars, we have our new monkeys as well, and our jaguars have actually decided that they're also having some more babies, so that's super exciting for next episode. We're going to have so many babies to look forward to. We have our little monkeys, our pygmy hippos and our timber wolves, and our tapirs are expecting as well, so I really look forward to next episode. We'll be able to enjoy all the little youngsters running around in our zoo, expanding all the genes, and also getting some new interesting animals in eventually into our zoo. Please comment down below what kind of animal you're looking forward to next, and if there's anything in particular you want me to add, because I am more than happy to do so. I'm thinking about doing another shared enclosure, but maybe something that's a bit smaller. And also I'm kind of interested in doing some farm type animals like llamas, so we can have like our first walk-in enclosure. I've never built one before, so I'm very intrigued how to do that and if it's going to be good or not. So yeah, comment down below. I hope you enjoyed this episode and take care, have a lovely day, and all I'll say now is